I had lost one gentleman from here because he did not want to take direction from a woman. And it was the hardest conversation I had ever had in my life.
Stephanie, tell us how you got started in this crazy MSP world.
It's funny that you say that. I wasn't looking originally. I started off as an IT director and found an ad for IT work and jumped right into an MSP. And I'll tell you what, it was like a fire hose in the mouth. So
Oh, for
we've
sure.
learned a lot.
Absolutely. So how long were you in as an IT director?
5 years for a
Oh,
gentleman who
wow.
owned multiple restaurants around the Denver metro area. So it was just a different environment altogether, one that I got to procure and put together myself versus now where I work in other people's networks. So,
Yeah, no doubt. And with that IT director position, is it safe to presume you came through the ranks as a tech?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Why that field for you? Of all the fields in the world, why tech? Why IT?
Yeah, funny you say that. So I started off in audiovisual. So I was in hotels doing a lot of big shows. One of our shows was a hackathon. And it was the first time I watched a group of gentlemen spend 5 hours hacking a Rivian. So, and they got the car to drive, windows go down, and I was just like, that's cool. Like, I'd like to know more about what that is and what the world of IT is. So, got into that, went back to school. Second time going back to college, and then kind of went from there. Just started growing and growing.
That's okay. So now I've got a million questions. So you like we do a lot of events. We speak at conferences, and there's always those AV guys from the hotel or some third party that they contract. And I always wonder, like, are those folks bored to tears listening to this nonsense? I would imagine they are, other than the hackathon, which sounds really cool.
That was fun. Yes, there are definitely some conferences you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fall asleep. But there are some you're like, wow, what am I looking at? I don't know what I signed up for. So, yep.
Oh, that's really cool. So you would be the person who would set up the microphones and if they have cameras, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I nerd out on all that. I love like different audio mixers and different types of microphones, like the wireless styles, the wired, and then the camera world obviously is just blown up. So.
Do you stay kind of current in that, or is that a different lifetime and now you just don't have the time to nerd out as
Oh,
much?
yeah, no, different lifetime. The only thing I stay current on is I use GoPros when I mountain bike. That's about it at this point. I don't.
No kidding. Do you
Yeah.
come back and edit, or do you just kind of whatever the raw? Yeah,
No, I come back and
really.
edit. Yeah, I still have my editing skills. I've kept up on the Photoshop. So, or the Premiere, sorry, Adobe Premiere. I still have my
Yeah.
skills in those worlds, thank gosh. But
No kidding. Now, so with the GoPros, do you do those like mounts gear and on helmets, on handlebars? Like, how many cameras do you run?
yeah, I only run one myself, and it's the chest mount.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is that the chest mount can be flipped. So when I have my husband riding behind me, I can put the mount back here, and I can get point of view from him, and it's phenomenally fun. So it's
That's
great,
so
great
cool.
learning tool too. When you're learning to like jump or how to put your body position, you can go back and watch that. So.
I do a little bit of flying. I'm a low hour pilot, and
Ooh.
the guys that fly out of the place that I fly out of, they're usually kind of my age, but unlike me, very wealthy. And a couple of them get real into um, putting GoPros all over their plane, like on the dashboard, on the wingtips, at the landing gear,
Yeah.
and then they'll have one kind of behind their head showing their instrument panel, and they will watch that and say, "Ooh, I should have had my speed at this. I should have my power setting at that." It's so instructive for them. Some of them, I know one guy definitely posts on his YouTube because he goes really interesting places, but a lot of them are just like, no, I just watch it to see what I could have done different, or to kind of, they'll even go, they figured out how to capture the audio from their headset, so talking to air traffic control and whatnot.
Yeah.
Way over my head. It's super cool. But like you said, on the mountain biking, yeah, what was my technique? How should I have taken that line?
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah. A
so
lot of
cool.
fun.
So you did the hotels, then you wanted to get into IT, and then your next job was as IT director for the restaurant company.
Yeah,
Okay.
I jumped in on a big one. It was interesting because I had just come out of school, just got my degree, or well, my certification for Network Plus. And I didn't really know what I was signing up for with this gentleman, but like when I jumped in, I was like, you've got old firewalls, you've got an old server, we've really got to clean you up, make
Right.
you whole. And so that was probably like the first experience I had taking something that was pre-built and making it better, which is a lot of what this MSP does. We take on a lot of these customers who have antique style setups or older setups that are becoming a vintage, and they don't know how to move forward. And that's really what we're getting to. The beauty of my position and what I love about this job the most is getting to show those customers there's a better and easier way to do this.
Right, right. All right, I'm gonna do something real quick. Hold on one sec. I'm gonna kind of wave this. Now, look at your camera, don't look at me.
Okay, look at my camera. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Is that
is
what
your
you
camera
prefer?
separate from your
Yes.
laptop right now?
Yes. Well, you're
Very
right
good.
here. My camera's right here.
If you want, you could try to move your laptop over underneath your camera a little bit if you want. Otherwise, just look at me as much as you can
You got
because
it.
you're doing great.
Look at you straight ahead,
Look at the
right?
camera. Yeah, straight
You
at the
got it.
camera. Yeah, I know it's hard. I have my camera set up right in front of my monitor, but I still find myself looking to the left to look at whoever I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's
all right.
funny too because when I used to do interviews, I'd have people look away because that was the shot, like the side shot where you're like doing this stuff, right? And
Yes. That's
whatever.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so cool. So now we're gonna kind of come back now. I'll go like this. All right. So you got into the restaurants and was this your first job in IT as well?
No, I mean it was my first solo job in IT.
First
So
solo job.
yeah, prior to that, the first IT job I got was working with Digital Globe, and they are now considered Maxar, right? When they hired me on for more of my audiovisual skills. We put on a lot of shows for them, and then I integrated into the IT side as I was going to school, which was phenomenal. They gave me such a great opportunity, and I got to learn VoIP. Got big and integrated in the VoIP side with Avaya and Cisco, and, telecom and telephones. And then as I grew, I jumped over to like the server side and user setups within Digital Globe. And then when I left there, when I departed, that's when I took on my directorship, and it was like cool. Like fundamentally, I know what I'm doing, right? But now I have no one to turn to be like, am I doing it right? Like I have myself. So it was definitely a big girl put your pants on, get it done, and successfully ran it very smooth up until the pandemic. Of course, the pandemic took that guy out, but it was a blast. It was definitely a blast and a learning curve. So
Yeah, you really jumped in heavily. Yeah, that's wild. And then, kind of your pattern seems to you jump in really hard on things, and now you come over to an MSP, and your role at an MSP now is what?
I mean, IT operations manager, but I didn't start here. When I started in 2020, I was a tech. I was just a tech at the help desk. I've slowly grown into different roles here. Starting off as a tech has been probably the most helpful thing because I can jump in with the team on anything, right? So whatever's coming up for them, our queues blowing up, I am the kind of manager who can put any of those hats on, which I find the most important, right? Especially when they're all looking to me and they're like, I'm drowning. No problem. I've got life vests for everybody, right? And that means I'm the one throwing those. So when I started as the same as everybody else, answering tickets in the queue, helping out with projects. And as people have retired or moved on to other things, I've slowly just taken on those roles, which now has me as an operations manager. And we are running a team of 12 people at this point and growing organically, very organically, which is phenomenal because when I first started, we didn't really have teams. We didn't have help desk. We didn't have projects. We were just doing this and having a lot of SOP issues because we weren't very established at that time, and the help desk and the IT department was growing. So CPS started with just copiers, and we've been taking our copier customers and converting them into IT customers as well. So that's where we're really gaining traction. And the beauty of it is having the organic teams naturally being grown. So now I have a project team. Now I have a help desk team, and I can split those duties up, and things run much more oiled and refined, right? Versus chaos and your hair's on fire. So
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, yeah.
What you took this kind of arc from being a director at the restaurant firm, saying, okay, I'm going to really dive in and get my technical chops doing technician work, and now you're kind of back in this leadership role. Maybe help us understand some of the differences between being a director for an internal IT versus your role for an MSP. How different do those roles look?
They have similarities in some regards, in some lanes, but they're very, very different freeways, if that helps. When I'm looking at an IT director position, you are designing your network. So, with that role, I was able to take those 12 restaurants and integrate firewalls so that, they're all on the same internal network, right? I could make the changes I wanted to that were based on the design I wanted to put forth. When I came into an MSP, you're dealing with other people's designs, right? And you have to work with what you're getting to make that ironed out or smooth or whatever. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things is it's no longer your design. It's going to be somebody else's, and you have to learn it and you have to support it. And so that's step one. Technically, it's a different ball game, right? Technically, it's whatever this person's put forth. You should know what the or what your foundation is, and then you can build from there. Versus what you put together is it like the back of your hand. I know this IP takes me to this store to this firewall, right? So that's definitely something that's very different. The similarities that both jobs have are obviously this job here and the job there. It was up to me to be the self-starter. I didn't have a ticket system as an IT director because I was the only person. I was the director, the technician, the on-site support, right? The sales, prospector, I that was every hat was one person. Here, I have the ability to split that up, so our focuses are a lot clearer. I have my help desk team in a focus of learning and making sure and double checking and reviewing backups, making sure customers are taken care of, those things. Then I have my project team. Their focus can be focused on just ensuring our project flow is going good, equipment's in, customer communications are out. You see, so I've taken away their frustration of needing to do all these different roles, and I've given them just one role. And the beauty of that is I wish I had that at the other job, but you don't. You know what you're signing up for as the director, the guy. But here you have the ability to break it up, right? And so I would say the only similarities there is I got to choose how we're running the help desk team. I got to choose how the project team is flowing. Now that doesn't mean that I chose all the ruling by any means. Let me just put out there this team that I'm working with has had so much input on how things have ran or how things flow that it's made our SOPs I think more refined and better than ever because I have the input from the team on what's worked and what hasn't. And so it's very, very nice to have that second set of eyes on things, which you don't have as an IT director by yourself, right?
Right.
So,
Let me ask this. So you've made that transition, and you made it very smartly. When you get a resume now from somebody who has spent a major as a technician who has spent a majority of their career in, we'll just call it internal IT, looking to come into the MSP world, what are some of the things that you are really aware of as challenges that person might have?
if, let me just make sure I've got your question right. So, me being a fresh out of school technician popping into an MSP, what are the things I should?
Um, no, I think maybe I'll rephrase it.
Yeah,
When you as a director get a
yeah,
resume from a technician who has been spending their career in internal IT, and they're applying to a role you have for a technician, and they're saying, "Oh, I want to try this MSP world." What are some of the things that you kind of clock in your mind as like they might struggle here or they might do really well here because? Does that make
yes.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's a great question. It always depends on your individual, obviously, right? One of the things I've seen as a pattern is people coming from internal IT, they deal with the same individuals day in and day out, right? And so then when you throw them in an MSP, the thing that makes them probably the most uncomfortable is they have to call all these other companies, all these other users, right? And it puts them outside of that comfort zone of, well, I know Jenny and I know how Jenny's going to react, or I know what Jenny needs and I can just get that off my plate and be done. No, 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 no. Now you need to call Amy at the law firm, who's a totally new person, who has a different attitude, different personality, and you've got to be able to, calculate how you're going to handle that, right, on the fly, right? And I would say if they're a good engineer and they're a good technician, the technical know-how and the technical work isn't going to be the roadblock for those individuals. The biggest roadblock is going to be working outside of the comfort zone with other people they haven't worked with, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I would look at it.
That's really interesting. A lot of times, I get this perception of what could happen. And the people thing I had not thought of. I think that's fascinating. I kind of trend more towards that internal IT person is really going to struggle in an MSP because they're used to working on their one or two firewalls. Now they've got 50 or 100 different firewalls. Or I just let myself think about the technology, but the people is a massive component.
It is. It's the biggest thing I see because our motto is we are people serving people. Okay, so like the way we train is that the first thing I'm trying to take care of is Jenny's issue, right? It's not necessarily that Jenny's calling me with a technical issue. She's upset she can't get her email, and she's upset she can't get her email because she's late for a meeting. She's panicking, right? So the number one thing I try to have my team look at is let's ease her mind. Number one, ease the individual and then deal with the technical, right? And when you're talking about people who don't have those skills and they've coming from an internal, they're not necessarily going to understand what is needed on the outside world on some of those things. And because we're big about people serving people, and I'm more concerned about making sure that my customer feels like they were taken care of, even if my engineer can't technically fix it, if my engineer still tells them I'm escalating this, you're going to get a phone call from so and so, that customer still feels like they've been served and they're being taken care of, regardless if they have a resolution. And that's the key that I think most MSPs have to think about is not every customer that every ticket that hits your queue is going to get resolved immediately. There are escalations, there's bigger problems. But if you can nail down the art of making sure your customer feels like they're being handled, regardless of what route you're taking, then you're already on the winning streak with that customer, right? And you're going to gain that long-term relationship. And so, regardless of Joe coming in and only handling one firewall, if Joe's really good and understands networks, 50 firewalls aren't going to be scary for him. But 50 customers he's going to have to talk to is scary to him, right? Because he's never had to. He's never had to pick up a phone and call someone. I see you have a ticket, right? Especially for these individuals who've never been in MSPs. And that's why I always say it's like a fire hose to the mouth because you have to learn all these different networks. Even though they're all the same, you just got to know that this network's 111.7 or this one's, 192.168.2.5, right? They're on a default 10.1, right? Those are the basic standard things that we repetitively need to understand. But to understand a customer and how to calm them down, that's an art. That's just an art that I feel like everybody should learn, right?
That sounds so obvious when you say it. As I've considered this issue for, 15 years, I never thought about it in that way. And I'll tell you, I do very much have different talk tracks that support that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, where it's uh, the client cares less about the issue being resolved and more about not being forgotten. Like it, which is like, a lot of times we get stuck in this place where it's like, I want my MSP to be first call resolution. Whoever picked up the phone is the person that can help them get it. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's really tough. But I feel like a lot of it has to do with how is that client feeling through that journey of that ticket. Is
Exactly.
that, are we saying something similar?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And that's why, like, there's tools out there that we offer to help these customers have insight on where their tickets are and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you asked a very upset customer what they were most upset about, it would be communication.
Yeah.
Like I just wasn't communicated with. I just didn't know where my ticket was. I just didn't know if my problem had been reviewed, right? Regardless of anything else. They just want to feel handled.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So when you're considering a candidate for a role, how do you figure out if they can be taught that, or that they kind of have that organically to them? How do you weigh those two things, that client experience potential and their technical chops?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously looking at resumes, you can always tell technically where someone is at, right? You can look at that. But when you look at what they were doing and how they handle themselves in an interview is where it's most key for me. So let me give you an example. Project team and my help desk lead, when I first hired them back in 2021, they were Uber drivers, right? They were just doing Uber driving. They just came fresh out of school for cybersecurity school, which if anybody's done cybersecurity classes, it doesn't prep you for MSPs. I'm just going to put this out there. It doesn't prep you. But they came in thinking they've been told they can handle this. This is what their college professors told them. They're ready to go. But really, I wasn't hiring them because of their technical knowledge. I was hiring them because they could look at me in the eye. They could have a conversation with me. They had a giggle. We conversed to where we could have a laugh. And one of the biggest questions I have is, what is going to be your biggest challenge when you're handling a customer, when you're on an Uber drive, right? And it's always about how they reply, right? Are they getting mad? Are they losing their cool? Do they seem short fused? Do they seem like the kind of individual who's going to be annoyed all the time for things that are human nature, right? So when I'm hiring, I'm looking for, well, the crowd that has the empathy, right? That can understand that, Sharon at this law firm who was retired and came back doesn't necessarily know how to work her email, right? This poor woman is 71 years old. And we treat every call as if they are a brand new person to us and we've never talked to them before and we have all the empathy in the world. So every Tuesday we have an IT meeting and we talk about that when you pick up that customer, it's a reset button with that customer. And the team that I have cultivated can handle that because I've ensured that when I'm having that interview talk and I say, someone called in and they're upset and I can hear that customer service voice being like, I'm really sorry, sir. Let's see if we can get you resolved, instead of the, wow, he was just rude and Johnny and screw that guy. Like, no, like we don't even have that kind of cooler talk internally. When we get that customer who's upset with us and we hang up and we're just like, gosh, Debbie was really angry today, like let's make sure we make her happy, right? Like, really wonder what got her. And those are the types of practices that we try to keep. So when I'm hiring someone, going back to that question, it's always the same. How do you handle your crankiest customer? How would you handle someone that had to you had dealt with that was very rude, but you're gonna have to deal with them again? And lastly, can you have some empathy, right? Are you calm enough and patient enough to know that Debbie had a bad day yesterday and today she's happy, right? So,
Yeah, that's awesome. I get the unique place in the world where I get to talk to hundreds of MSP employees every month, it seems sometimes, but definitely several hundred a year. So when I tell you this, I really mean it. I haven't heard somebody articulate that client experience and empathy as clearly as you just did right here. It's
right.
really sinking in. Okay, so now I'm going to press on that a little bit because I want to drive this home for anyone who might stumble across this awesome video. Um, when you're in that hiring process, do you do anything? I know a lot of people use like disc assessments, or there's different ones like that. Are you a fan of those? Where's your head on kind of personality testing?
Uh, you know, we do those around the office for shits and giggles, right? They're kind of fun to see. But when I'm hiring someone, I don't use those at all, right? I have my own laundry list of things that I double check. So one of the hotels I worked at was a Ritz-Carlton. And if you've ever heard their training, it's ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, which is something we're very big about here, right? We're people serving people. I am human, I make mistakes. You are human, you make mistakes. I'm here to help you so we both don't make it, right? Someone comes in to sit down and have an interview with me, and if they are, how would I put it? If their experience level is enough where they can at least have a conversation face to face and they seem humbled, you're going to make it somewhere. And the reason why I say that is because you can teach anyone IT for the most part. You can teach anyone audiovisual, right? And so what we used to say is you could teach a monkey to do a flip chart, but you can't teach a monkey to do customer service, right? And that's where I'm coming from is I don't when I'm going through someone's resume, I will be interested in what you might know, but I'm more interested in how you're going to handle a customer because that comes first for me, your customer service skills over your IT skills. So we have trainings internally, we have a whole team here. We are going to get you to the level we want you so you can grow yourself internally technically. But my expectation for you with the customer service is already going to be top notch, right? That's where I want my people, right? Is you pick up a phone, you're empathetically understanding someone's bad day or someone's bad technology experience, and you're empathetically able to get them through it, knowing they're going to call you back because they had such a pleasant experience. They felt heard. And that's where I'm looking. So when I go through those personality tests, I'm more worried about like when I ask you a question of, hey, if I came in angry today, are you going to be angry with me? Are you going to get angry back? Or are you going to ask me what's going on and work it out with me, right? Those are the types of questions I gun for and the personality that I'm being presented.
Yes. And okay, so I've been thinking about how to ask this question because I definitely don't want to shit on techs because techs are awesome. I would say it's a really tough population of folks because you can be surprised by this highly technical person who like has this weird gruff exterior, but every client loves them. Or you
Have
can have
those?
this really kind of
Yep.
meek kid who you kind of feel like, oh, he's so sweet and whatever. And it's like, man, clients read you as apathetic or aloof, and then you just got the just you're awesome, and of course people love you. But I think generally speaking, when an outsider looks at a group of technicians, they're not really thinking I'm about to get a really cool client service engagement. I think generally that's the first impression is I'm not really expecting this to be great. I would love for you to have a different take on that or more lean into it, whatever is more true for you.
I agree with you. I have engineers who are considered the introverts. You know, they're really good at putting their head down and tapping away on things and getting things resolved, but they're not the most soft edged for a customer, right? And so, you know, those are the types of things where I incorporate a lot of team building with us. We just had a tech bingo. So we had a bingo card for each engineer that they had to go through. It came with a really cool backpack for us. But in that tech bingo, it forced them to have certain things to say to a customer, right? So, how was your day today? You know, and if you get a 5 minute conversation with that customer about nonchalant, you know, items, things like I already fixed it, you know, or different stuff like that. What I've learned with those types of things is it forces my gruffer engineers to warm up a little bit and find the light and the fun and joy in the interactions, which I feel like is where they lack. They always walk into it with a very negative or bleak outlook of, oh, I got to go talk to Debbie. She's going to be cranky. It's this day for Debbie, right? But what I'm working on is go in there with your head straight, go in there with your head, you know, thinking she's going to, hey, Debbie, what's going on? How's your day, right? That tone change right away flips the whole picture. And it also slowly changes these gruffer individuals into less gruffer individuals. So what I've learned is that there are really creative ways to help that team build and help that communication build with those individuals. And that I feel like we can break that stigma or that taboo, right? You're an engineer, you must be an introvert. No. I mean,
Right.
I'm an engineer myself, and I'm probably the most bubbliest person here.
No
um,
doubt.
I'm not the smartest, but I definitely can rally up where I need to and get people at least hyped enough or happy enough, or in some regards with some of these guys, okay enough to be calling the cranky lady and then ending up hanging up with a smile, right? So, I mean, again, it always goes back to who you hire and how that interaction goes with that hire. And I can always say that not all of them have been perfect for me. I've had a few where that 90-day period proves that we're just not a fit, right?
Right.
So it's really also about cultivating the team slowly and patiently with people you really, really want.
I love that, and you mentioned Ritz-Carlton in their training program. Oftentimes I reference Nordstrom's training program,
That's a good
and
one.
right, another good one.
Hmm.
And then I kind of think of like the reality of this MSP land we live in, where it's like there's plenty of training for technicians on how to solve technical issues. There's some training for how they can work within their PSA or their RMM. But I have yet to see over my 20 years of doing what I do a thoughtful training program around how to tech. How do you walk into that office? How do you not try to avoid making eye contact with everyone and just beeline to the server room? How do you greet the front desk person? How do you greet the person on the phone? I just haven't seen that. And frankly, I'm sure I've heard someone else talk about this client experience at some point, but you're really making a mark on me. Have you noticed that gap in our world as well on just where do techs get to learn how to just be a tech and provide that experience the way Ritz or Nordstrom
Yeah,
does?
I mean, my experience with the Ritz Carlton was that they give their people um, the courage and the confidence to handle what they have, right? So, like, one of the things that Carlton boasts about is they have the 2000 rule. So, like, someone walks in, the front desk person has up to $2,000 they could spend. They could get a coffee for that person. They could get that person a spa day, right? So they have the way, or they have the tools to pass down the perks that the Ritz Carlton wants to give to those customers. We need to do the same, right? We need to provide our team with the tools that is going to give the perks to those end users. And one of the things we preach about is white glove service, right? We just took on a new customer. We want to give them white glove service. Double check all those machines. Make sure they're healthy. Give them a nice report that says what we're going to fix and how we're going to get them upgraded, right? That white glove service, that's easy to do because it's technical, it's on paper. But when it comes to my engineers having the confidence to walk in and be like, yeah, I was given the time for this. Yeah, my boss told me this is how I could handle it. And I did. I walked in with my head tall and it went flawlessly. We are missing the mark on that. We're not giving these guys the confidence sometimes we need to give them to provide the customer service we're expecting, right? And so me as a manager, I'm always thinking of what would I expect of myself, and that's what I try to pass down to my team and my peers is I would expect myself to have the empathy, and I would expect myself to be able to have the tools to be able to spend $10 to get this customer a coffee because she's having a bad day. Let me go buy her a coffee, right? Shouldn't come out of my engineer's pocket. No problem, right? I'm going to give you the tools. And now you've got your head high because Susie called in yesterday and she really wants to see Nathan again. He bought her a coffee, he made her day turn around, and now she wants to sign a 2-year contract with us, right? Those are the types of things, right? There's a science behind what the Ritz-Carlton is doing, and that science needs to be reapplied everywhere. Giving these people confidence because that also gives me the ability to rinse and repeat my engineers and the customer service that I'm giving. And then I can boast and say we are people serving people because every engineer has been trained in the same light, in the same way, with the same confidence.
No doubt.
That's how it
Okay,
works.
I'm in. I'm already thinking about giving my consultants $1,000 budget. Say, buy them lunch, do this. Now I'm already like gonna make. I'm gonna. Yeah.
Small
I'm gonna.
things, my friend. It's always the small things that brighten
Yes.
people's days, like
Yeah.
cleaning up someone's computer and making it faster. That took me 3 seconds to do, but I have a very happy person who put a Google review in for us, right? Like
Yes.
small things make big impact.
Okay. So then You obviously care about that client experience quite a bit. What are you doing in terms of validating client experience or client loyalty or client satisfaction? What are some of the things that you have in place?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of validation, it's obviously we work all together, right? I mean, like I'm in my office, but down the hall is the team, right? So I'm always got an ear on what's happening. But like I was saying, every Tuesday we meet and we have different trainings on what we meet about. So last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago was a little bit of training about the ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen, the importance of giving that white glove service to a customer or that one touch. And then reiterating and going through scenarios with people. Like, when I call out the room, I'll usually be like, Derek, I heard that you were on the phone with so and so. We record every call. So we like to play back our calls, right? And listen in. I think the best example I have is I had a customer who berated us one day. She called about 7 times. And when I got on the phone with her, I got snippy with her. I was caught off guard. I got snippy. Tuesday rolled around, I played that back to the team. I played my call back to the team and I asked them to tell me what I did wrong. And I used myself as that example. And it was interesting to see how immediately everybody took my training to heart. They were like, you didn't listen to her. You were rude. You interrupted her. You did this. I'm like, I mean, it was a slap in the face, but it was the best example ever. And then in front of everyone, I called that customer and apologized to her because it's the right thing to do, right? And it was showing this team that, look, not even I am below having to do these things. These are the things that make us a people serving people company and not a multi corporation who don't care about you, I want your money company. Okay. And so those are the types of examples that I want them to have. Those are the things that I want them to see. And those are the ways that I try to show them. Like, I'm going to call myself out here, people. Learn from this mistake, right? Now I'm going to call her and apologize to her. I am sure none of you want to do that with a customer. So now you know what not to do and what to do better, right? That's the
That's
goal.
right. What do you have anything where you um, survey your clients in any way?
We do, yes.
What do
So
you
we
do?
have we survey our clients mainly for projects. So when we onboard a customer, we send out a survey, and then when we complete a project, we send out surveys. Our Google reviews are phenomenal. I don't think I've had any bad ones in the last 3 or 4 years. That has a lot to do with the team that we've cultivated. If you look at the team we had prior to 2020, our reviews were exceptionally different than what our reviews are now. And that really does show what the team has taken to heart in the trainings we've provided, right? Versus versus the opposite, right? And so the other part of that is after every project, we send an email out to the customer telling them a breakdown of that project and then asking them to give us that review. And we want that review because we constantly are asking for the feedback. What could we have done better? Was this, sufficient for you? On a scale of 1 to 10, would you say 10 being the best? How did it feel for you? Was the experience good? Those types of surveys we utilize mainly for training internally, right? I'm not taking those numbers and using them against my team. We use those numbers to look at them and say, okay, guys, on this project, where did we go wrong? On this project, what did we do right? How can we better the next one? And that's really what we're utilizing it for, statistically, more than using it against or figuring out whose performance is poor or good.
Yeah. Yeah, and how about the converse? It sounds like you've built a really awesome culture, and you have a very clear culture in mind as the leader there. Is there anything you do to kind of survey your employees and figure out kind of their satisfaction with their role and their job and all of the things?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So we have, when I first hire someone, I always have a 90-day review after hiring them, right? So it's always a pulse check. How's it going? Is this what you're asking for? You know what you've signed up for. Let's see where you're at, right? I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of people, MSPs aren't for them. And that's important to have that 90-day check because you will learn that there are some people who you think are fitting in and doing great, but they actually feel like they're drowning. And if you've got an employee who's always going to feel like they're drowning, I have learned in the past it's based on the individual, but sometimes you can't get them out of that. And sometimes a slow roll is the role that that individual needs. But we also do yearly reviews. Every year on your anniversary, you're getting a review with me and our CFO. Basically, that's your time to provide any certifications you've gained for the year, anything that you would like to point out as your, growth or your accomplishments for the year. And then from there, we would always review like what you could do to grow, salaries, those types of things.
Right.
What I've learned is that if you wait a whole year, your engagement drops. So what I've learned is group engagements throughout a year make things way more impactful. So going back to the bingo card, right? We had backpacks to give out. Everybody had a blast doing bingo, right? Every person had their own card. Each card had its own little tidbit. But the very center of everybody's bingo card was a JAMF certification. Everybody had to have it. So you had to get that certification, and then you can move on from that. And now I have a whole team certified, just like that, for fun, right? So, it's just little things like that that I find are more impactful. And then by the time that year comes up for that review, that employee already feels like they've accomplished A, B, and C, D throughout the year. And I didn't even have to ride their butts about it, right? Because it was a game, it was fun, everybody enjoyed it, right? So that's how our culture. We're still in our practice and figuring out and feeling it out and growing, but that's the learning curve for me myself as a leader is if I want them to have these certifications, if I need them to be engaged, making it fun makes it way more easier to have engagement.
I'm going to take a little different angle here, and you go ahead and redirect it if you like here. I don't know if you know this, but in traditional MSP land, those that are standalone MSPs, they have a lot to say about copy dealers with MSPs. And I had the awesome opportunity for the last 5 years to work with a bunch of copy dealers with MSPs. I had no, all I heard was what I heard from MSPs saying, oh, they don't care, they're big, they don't know IT, and it's like, okay, well, that all sounds kind of defensive on your part, whatever. But I quickly learned. I mean, like probably after my first, couple meetings with these copy dealers, I'm like, these folks know business. If they're lacking in your community, that MSP with that copy dealer lacking technology, they're gonna figure it out and they're gonna be awesome at it. Um, but one of the things that I've identified in the copy dealers is the MSP nests under uh, a company that's been around a long time, that's figured a lot of things out. I work with some of them that are like 60 years old, and it's like you don't last 60 years, 50 years, 30 years without figuring it out really well. So my question to you with all that lead up is, when you came into the MSP portion of the business, were they already building that awesome culture and you got to just kind of flow it down, or did you have to create a new culture under the MSP side because they're two very different businesses? What was that experience like?
Yeah, great question. It's gonna be the latter. I had to create it. So when I first started, they were CBS is still a copier company. They've been around since '97, right? So they definitely have a very good rinse repeat, making money style for the copier team. But when it came to IT, when I first came on board, it was disorganized. There were, we were trying to figure out our bearings on 24/7, if what our packages were, what was our stack, like what are we selling, like what are we supporting, what can our engineers support, so we're not out punting the coverage, right? All these variables. And so when I came on board, I just started asking these questions and no one can answer it. And so that's when the building blocks started coming into play, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm a big person about SOPs and what's my task here, and once this task is done, what's next? What do you want from me, right? That's what I love to know. And there was very little of that. All there was here's e-auto, tickets come in, answer them. This is it, right? Oh, did you need information about the client? I have a folder called clients. Like,
Right, right.
no, 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 no. So we got smarter. I mean, we got smarter. We worked with our partners, IT Glue, getting integrated with ConnectWise, learning to use a real ticket system. But none of that stuff really came into play until we had our foundation. And the foundation had to be, what is help desk for CBS, right? What does that SOP look like? What does that call time look like for the customer? What are we going to relay to the customer? If they call, it's going to be a turnaround time of what? If they email, what's the turnaround time, right? So slowly those organizations came into place naturally because I just was like, what are we doing here, right? Like, and those things were where a lot of the team I'm working with, they were just so neck deep in trying to answer the ticket and get these things done that they had created something that they couldn't take the time to refine. And I think that's where I came in, was I was able to look at the pile of spaghetti and say, okay, this is a lane, this is a lane, this is a lane, right? And organize that better. And as we did that slowly but surely, we are now getting to that point of the rinse and repeat. And now I have it where I have an engineer come in. I know exactly what their first 2 weeks look like. They're scheduled for this, they're scheduled for that, they're getting these trainings. And by the time they're on a phone with a customer, they're a very confident individual. They know where to go look for things. They know how to handle it. They know what the expectation is. They know it's only 30 minutes, and if they can't finish in 30 minutes, it gets escalated, right?
Nice.
All of those questions are answered. And I think that when you look at these companies that start in copiers and they're trying to wiggle into the IT world, I feel like we all just dive in and we don't really have a playbook on what we should be starting with, right? Like that's the part that really, like, you've got to have some business sense to know, like, what are we doing, right? And what is going to be the rules and regulations before we even start this whole shindig. But that's it. Like, it's one thing to take a copier customer and be like, I'm going to handle your IT now, and they'd be like, yeah, let's do it. I love partnering with you. But handling it right and knowing what to do, that's the part that I feel like we had lacked. We're so much better now, but I see with other MSPs where they're doing one thing right, well, that one thing does not necessarily meld with this, especially when it comes to copiers. The copier world is much more lax and light, in my opinion, in terms of the things they're dealing with versus IT world, right? If Debbie can't get her email, she's very upset.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? But if someone can't scan the email, they'll wait 2 days for my copier tech to show up to fix it. I
Right.
don't get it.
That's
But
hilarious. Let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to virtue signal or anything like that here, but I do want to ask you, um, being a woman in technology, do you even notice that, you are a minority in this space? And if so, does it matter to you? And maybe let's kind of hear your thoughts on that. If you have any, if you want to share a little bit.
no, I'm glad you asked. When I first started with CBS, I was the only female on my team for about 3 years. So 3 years it took me to even find another female in IT, right? And when I'm looking at resumes, I could say 99.9% are men, and there is a 2% or a 1% of women, right? I feel like that's going to change. I see a lot of more youth getting into this, which is phenomenal. I have been in IT since 2010, and I have met one other woman who maybe was in my position, right? I'm not saying that they aren't out there. I know that there are other women who are IT operations, but they didn't come from IT. They came from a manager side, right? They didn't come from a help desk necessarily and then grow up the ranks. I'm sure they're out there. But one of the biggest struggles is being heard, right? I think I can definitely say I had lost one gentleman from here because he did not want to take direction from a woman. And it was the hardest conversation I had ever had in my life. I didn't think I'd ever have to have this tough of a conversation with someone. And the funniest part is he let me hire him. And then he turned around and told me that his religion wouldn't let me tell him what to do. And I was like, my friend, like, I don't even know how to begin with this. You've already signed documents. You knew I was the one hiring you. And he was like, yes, but I thought the help desk lead, who was a gentleman, was going to be the one giving my day-to-day directives. And so I cannot take it from you. And those are the types of things that I just find so unevolved for an individual, so unevolved. And at the same time, sad because he's just making that stereotype so strong, like regardless of sex, we can do just as much as what a man could do, and a man could do what a woman could do. And it really cracks me up when people are like, no, we're so different. I'm like, right, but it takes two to make a human. It still takes both sexes to get to the end goal. It shouldn't matter, right? So looking at it now, I've got well, there's three women on staff now. So there's myself and two other women who are phenomenal. They're engineers. And when I'm hiring, if I can find a woman, I try to go for it. Because
Sure.
here's the thing that a lot of MSPs don't think about, and they're not catching on to until later. A lot of these customers want a woman sometimes, if not most of the time, because majority of these men are dealing with women, admins, right? Secretaries, the clerk at the front desk. It's mostly women. And if you think that a man telling a woman what to do doesn't drive us crazy, right? Even though we're putting a ticket in or we're getting mansplained something, that's where a woman comes into play, right?
Yeah.
So like in this instance, I've had it about 6 times at this job where I've had women from different organizations call me because they're worried about something in their email and they wanted to ask a woman, right? Or they're worried about something in their phone from a dating app and they don't want to ask a man, they want to ask a woman because they're afraid of the judgment. And that sir has actually given CBS a very big upper hand. Very big because I can walk into a room now where the person they're presenting to is all women and you've got all salesmen and they're just these girls are like, how am I going to feel supported when I've got all these dudes who have their very strong opinions over me? Well, you don't. You've got a woman in here who you can relate with, and
Yeah.
it's closed many deals for us. So
Wow.
like when a lot of people ask that question, I'm always ready to gun ho with the answer of most of your customers are women. Why wouldn't you want a woman on staff? Like,
Sure.
why? Right? It just doesn't make sense why a lot of men think that a woman in help desk isn't productive or conductive to business when it is. It's actually
So,
more important, in my opinion, than having a balanced team than having none at all.
so I think your experiences are much more relevant than my own, but I want to ask the question as well. I think there's a hiring manager saying, "Boy, I just feel more comfortable with a man." They're never going to say it out loud, but their actions might show that. But then there's the supply side as well. Do they have the opportunity to hire women enough? Are young women getting into this technology space? You're saying 99% of the applications you see are from men. So maybe some of those hiring managers who are men just don't even get the opportunity to see the woman candidate. But on that supply side, if today you're saying most of those resumes are men, boy, I'll sure be interested to see when that starts kind of, changing the balance a little bit. Because I know the schools and the colleges are really promote STEM for women as well, much more than they have in the past. And to your point, I remember I had been doing my job for 4 or 5 years before I showed up at a client, and it was like, oh, you have a woman as a technician, and I hated that I even clocked it. Like
I
I hated.
know,
I
right?
was like, come on,
I
but
get
I
that
was
all
like,
the
oh, that's really cool. But then it was years before I saw it again, and I was just like, whoa, that's weird. Again, not trying to virtue signal like I've got some great mission in the world, but it's more of a curiosity. So I'm glad that you have some takes on it as well.
It's the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always get, oh, a woman for an IT ops manager? Yeah, yeah, actually. And it's funny because nobody would expect it, but in some regards, I'm probably more nurturing as a manager in some degree than a man would be as well, right?
Sure,
I mean, I have a
sure.
team that has a buy-in on what I'm asking of them because they believe in what our mission is together collectively. And if you look at the leadership we had prior to that, he couldn't get anybody on board because he ruled with an iron fist. And that's where it's like you got to look at that and we have to learn. We have got to learn that iron fists don't always do it, right? And even with our clientele, it doesn't work all the time. And if you want more clients, right, that's where you've got to learn to bend.
You
But
know, it's
Having a woman is it's been superb. Many girls or many women in this just in this organization here has helped me through some sticky situations I don't think a dude could handle, right?
There's
So
no
it's
doubt.
interesting.
No, and you think about just generational differences between, generation, X, Alpha, Z, Millennial. None of those are bad. It's just when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, you're looking at it and saying, that looks different. That must be bad. There are these things. And it's like, no, you're just, you're now exactly where you should be. You should be a little bit stuck in your ways or programmed a certain way, but getting frustrated at the next generation below is not the answer. It's really saying, how am I going to adapt, with a little bit of a smile on my face because the world is what the world is. You got to adapt to it.
Yep,
Um,
exactly. Put your helmet on.
Well,
Right.
Stephanie, listen. I've really enjoyed chatting with you here. Where can people find you? What do you have to tell us about what you guys are doing? Anything you want to tell us the world about where they can find you, where they can find your company?
Yeah, CBS, Complete Business Systems of Colorado. So that's where we're at, where the big, beautiful Rocky Mountains are. But a little bit about us. I mean, we are an MSP. Obviously, if you're an MSP, you know what you're going to provide. But the part that we have the upper hand on is that people serving people. And we will take the time to go ahead and listen to your IT needs and try to iron that out and take things off your plate from your day to day. And that's our goal is to make your day to day easier and make IT less of a redheaded stepchild and more of your partner.
Well, I love the people helping people, serving people. That's outstanding. All right,
Yes.
Stephanie, catch you next time.
Thank you. You have a great
Bye.
one.